Howdy folks, Tex Grebner here with Tex Grebner Outdoors. I hope you guys are ready for your Tex Grebner Outdoors Saturday morning cartoon awesomeness because it's Illinois Archery season 2019, week number 6. If you guys want to support the channel in a way beyond simply watching the videos, you can go to texgrebneroutdoors.com, check out the Make It Weird sticker, the Make It Weird shirt, the Life Ain't Like the Pornos, Hunting Ain't Like the TV Show shirt, and of course, my personal favorite, the Kill with Sticks shirt. If you guys want to get a discount on all your trad life supplies, you can go to threeriversarchery.com, check out their merchandise. You can use the discount code of Tex Grebner in your checkout on everything from the Three Rivers reflective arrow wraps, which I highly recommend, to the trophy burr limb bolts for a takedown recurve, such as seen on my Tiger Shark Pro there, and of course the snake skin backing that I use to restore my vintage Shakespeare. You're probably going to be shopping there anyways, and it shows your support for Tex Grebner Outdoors by using the discount code of Tex Grebner in your checkout. I really appreciate Three Rivers Archery for all their support. You don't have to be in good shape in order to be a good hunter. But as a hunter, you will never regret being in good shape. So I strongly recommend that you check out traintohunt.com. If you're looking to start a fitness journey or you need motivation to continue a fitness journey, become involved in the Train to Hunt program, become involved in the Train to Hunt Challenge, and I hope to see you guys one of these years at a Train to Hunt National Championship. Now, life ain't like the pornos and hunting ain't like the TV shows. I live in real life. And I hope that you guys are going to enjoy this reality-based episode of Tex Grebner Outdoors Illinois Archery season. I guess we'll see. See if my tree stand's still here. See if somebody else is sitting in it. And we'll see if I can't kill with sticks. Of course, I'm the asshole that's walking in from the trailhead this time. Well, this is awesome. I'm here on the public land. Good news is my tree stand isn't stolen. The bad news is I forgot to put my tree stand ratchets into my pack so that I could hang up my camera arms. So, I'm down here, hiked in, and I can't hang up my camera arms because my tree stand ratchets are at home. Good news, I guess, is that I've got enough daylight to go home and get them, and in other good news, my tree stand hasn't been stole yet. Now, of course, I could always just climb up in the tree and just go hunting. But that's not what I'm about. I'm about bringing you guys along with me. And God forbid a deer walked out and I shot it, because a GoPro ain't worth the crap at the edge of shooting light. So it looks like I'm packing everything up, heading back home, and hopefully I'll be able to get back out here before the end of shooting light. I couldn't have asked for a more perfect day for deer hunting. It was calm, it was cold, but the sun had melted up the snow, the leaves were starting to fall off the trees, all the acorns were on the ground. There were scrapes and rubs all over the acorn flat. It was just absolutely perfect, even though the hunt started out a little bit rocky. But then again, it's Tex Grebner Outdoors, so I don't know what the heck you were expecting. Granted, I'm human, I make mistakes, or at least I'm half human, and about half varmint to tell you the truth. However, it was just so damn perfect. It was the kind of day that you dream about in the middle of July. And around every clump of brush, every rustle, it can be a deer. Because even though you know something's probably not going to show up, there's always that chance. There's always that lying hope that keeps you going out. Because even when I don't get a chance to go out hunting, I think about hunting and I wish I was there. So even though it was the kind of day that you dream about as a hunter in the middle of July, you're not quite desperate, but you're getting desperate when it's November and you still haven't killed anything. Now you might notice that I've changed bows again. I've gone back to my Martin Hunter. Now, it does kill my ego to drop my bow weight down from my 100-pound Mountain Monster to my 75-pound draw Martin Hunter, but I do shoot the Mountain Monster really good. There's also the fact that as it gets colder and colder, and I'm going to have to start wearing gloves, it is difficult to be able to control the Mountain Monster with the gloves on. So I figure, what the heck, I'll drop bow weight, and it's the bow that I'm most familiar with. So I've switched back over to my Martin Hunter in 75 pounds. I know. Dropping bow weight for me means dropping my draw weight back down to 75 pounds. What can I say? Of course, the public land was a little bit packed tonight, and I was kind of thinking that maybe close to dark, when guys started walking out, that they might push deer toward me. Not to sound lackluster, but the days have kind of started to bleed together a little bit. The high-stakes game of whack-a-mole goes on, and the slow descent into madness has officially begun. It's not that I don't want to go out hunting, because as you well know, I love what I do. If I wasn't out there, I'd be wishing I was out there. And when I'm out there, it's a whole bunch of hurry up and wait, because you got to be there to get a deer, but you don't know what the deer's going to be doing. Because in spite of all the outdoor marketing that will try and get you to spend your money, you're not making a wild animal do anything other than what it already wants to do. That's just the sad, honest-to-God truth. And I have spent a ridiculous amount of money on products that I just dumped on the ground. And I've probably wasted an African safari worth of money on buck lure and other stuff, which is why I will not advocate for it, because in most cases you're wasting your money and you're getting false hope. Good news is I did see some fresh scrapings on my way down the hill, and it was such a perfect day. The irony of it being a perfect day, beautiful, calm, and not miserable, but cool and overcast. Literally, the kind of day that as a whitetail hunter that you dream about. The irony of that is the fact that the closest that I came this year to breaking the whitetail curse was gale force winds hanging 10 off of a deer stand and managing to miss a button buck at less than 10 yards. Now, the creek was still running a little swift, so I sat up on the ground, and with the wind earlier in the day, it had kind of dried out the leaves, and it had gone from being snowy on Halloween to a regular early fall kind of atmosphere. So the leaves being a little bit crunchy meant that everything was so amplified. A squirrel, a chipmunk, a bird, you name it. You're on high alert because anything can be a deer. It's not gonna be a deer, but it could be. Especially if there's enough foliage in the way to screen it from view, and so your imagination will fill in the blank. Especially if you're filming your hunts, you have to be on high alert, because you got to get your cameras on. As I've said before, you got to get your cameras in position, and you got to be ready, especially when you're hunting on the ground. And so the slow descent into madness, as I said, has officially begun, and the days have started to bleed together. And it was such a wonderful hunt. because I was able to be out there doing it.
Time to level off another grain bin.
Well, it looks like I got the public land to myself tonight. Unless somebody else pulls up. We'll see how this works out. Got probably 2 hours left of daylight. Beautiful weather. I tell you a funny story. Now this dates back to when I was like 12 or 13 years old, and I was getting my first real man-sized compound bow set up. It was a Martin Lynx. 60 pounds. It actually had an adjustable cam module. It was a center shot riser with a 6-inch overdraw. And I had to beg my old man. And he got me the twistable knock XX75s in the camo hunter pattern. And I had a fancy fiber optic, probably cost like $14, but it was a fancy plastic housing, fiber optic, Walmart True Glow sight, and a Walmart Allen Company to release, probably cost $15 back then too. And this fancy stabilizer, well okay, it wasn't fancy, it was a chunk of metal, as if the bow needed to be any heavier. But the point was, I had this fancy True Glow sight for the day. Again, it was fancy to me. But I had 3 pins. And all the old fellas that I used to shoot with, now keep in mind, I didn't start bow hunting until much later in life. But when I was 13, all the old fellas used to give me crap about having 3 pins in my sight. And I couldn't ever figure out why all these old timers were only using 1 pin. Because I always figured that I wanted as many pins as I could get. And keep in mind, these were fiber optic pins. These weren't just brass that had paint on them either. These you could actually see. But I couldn't figure out why they only had 1 pin. Now they'd tell me, but it didn't make any sense to me at the time, and it didn't honestly make any sense to me for years. They said that they had 1 pin for 20 yards. Because that was all they needed. Because they were good enough woodsmen to get inside the flight zone. Inside the flight zone, which is how close you can get to an animal before it will either fight or run away. And they lived inside that flight zone, and they knew how to get close to animals or pick the right trail and get there. And I did not learn that lesson until much later in life. But even if you're a compound bow hunter, you can still hunt with a traditional style with 1 pin in your sight and hunt inside 20 yards. Just finished up chores here, or at least my section of the chores. We work till dark in the field. I hate daylight savings time, but at least we're getting a good portion of the fields out, and hopefully everybody else is, so that the rut doesn't happen with a bunch of standing corn. Windier than hell right now. Hopefully you can hear me, but at least that should be drying out the ground. Having to fix fence or
preemptively fixed fence so the cows don't get out now that they're on the cornstalk field. This is about, I'd say this fence is at least 60 years old. So there's that. Probably not getting out hunting tonight. Got the auger set back up. We're combining beans. Possibly gonna snow. So at least we got the fence fixed up so the cows stay in that pasture on the corn stalks. I really appreciate everybody that's bought merchandise, because I was thinking about this the other day. I don't really make a whole lot of money, so to speak, on t-shirt sales. Mostly because my demographic, I am a man of the people. People that are watching me are the kind of people, and you should take pride in this because you're hardworking folks. People that watch Tex Grebner Outdoors and that identify with my content are the kind of people, like my kind of people, that I am, where if you need paper towels, but you're also out of chewing tobacco, instead of buying the value pack at Walmart and a can of Copenhagen, you've got to choose between them. So you buy one roll of paper towels, or the 2-pack of paper towels, and a can of Longhorn instead of Copenhagen. So I just want you to know that even though I find it humorous, I really do appreciate everybody that's bought the Tex Grebner Outdoors merchandise, because just like I always say, I'm one of you. I'm trying to think of a nice way of saying this, but there really isn't a nice way of saying it. We want to grow the tribe. We want people to get into bow hunting. So when somebody that is already famous even thinks about bow hunting, we will bend over backward to make sure that this famous person or famous people get to have a good experience. They don't get to suffer. They get to go straight to the top, because we want them on our team. And we are terrified that if they experience in its true magnificence of suck, where stuff doesn't come in, you go home empty-handed. You work your ass off and still fall flat on your face. We don't want them to have that happen, because it is in our best interest for them to be successful. Now, I don't begrudge people their successes, but I do have a chip on my shoulder about people paying their dues. And it's just as bad in traditional bow hunting as it is in the compound world, because we're all about growing the tribe. But at the same time, a lot of people get into traditional bow hunting when they switch over from a compound, and if they're already famous, we want to make sure that they have a good time. Now, I get accused quite often of being negative. Oh, you're too negative. Well, guess what? Life isn't fun. Life isn't fair. That's just the way that it is. And if an animal isn't taking my trail, or the animal isn't coming through property that I have access to, hope ain't gonna change that. Positivity is not gonna change that. I respect somebody a hell of a lot more that can go out with the understanding that they're not gonna see anything, but with the mere minuscule chance that something might show up, other than somebody that is going out with an expectation of success because it's prime territory. It is basically show up and shoot. Now, I don't begrudge people their successes. If you're in that position, good for you. I'm happy for you. Truly, I am. But I also know that my people need to hear the way that it really works so that they know that they're not alone in their struggle. You go out as often as you can, and you go out knowing that something showing up is the exception to traditional bow hunting rather than the norm. And so I also hear people talk about, oh, a 75-yard blood trail, blah, blah, blah. He just did a death run of 75 yards or 50 yards or 100 yards of blood, and then you find him. Nice wish. 30 yards and I'm off of my property lines, and I'll be lucky if I could find that deer in the standing corn over on Crocker's. A 50-yard blood trail? I've told you before, mostly on the pasture property, I could stand at one end of the trees and shoot an arrow across the property line to another. So that's just kind of what's going through my head today. I'm not begrudging people their successes. I'm happy for them. And if you're famous already, good for you. You might not have had to put in the work to get successful with bow hunting, but you clearly put in work somewhere else. I find that there are so many ready-made stars in bow hunting today that are getting passed over people that have been paying their dues, now working their asses off, and nobody cares. So that's just kind of what's on my mind right now, because in this day and age, we're all pretty much bastard children of Fred Bear. We are Fred Bear's bastard kids. There's some folks that get to have opportunity because of what opportunities they have. And then there's other folks like us that are the bastard kids of Fred Bear in traditional bow hunting that just don't have the opportunities. And we have to work really hard, and we have to work for what we've got. Because if you don't like your situation, you can change your situation if you work really hard. But there is also literally insurmountable odds where if you don't like your situation, change your situation is basically the equivalent of me saying I'm going to climb up in my tree stand and flap my wings and fly off the platform. Okay? That's just the way that is. There are things that you can change, and there are things that you have to accept, and you have to make the best of what you've got. So while I'm ranting about being bastard children of Fred Bear, people get into traditional bow hunting, and sometimes they get to be instantly successful because they already had the deer moving through the properties that they had access to. And it was only a question of getting good with the bow and making the decision that you were going to let a deer walk to 15 yards and shoot versus being able to shoot him out at 30 yards. And don't get me wrong, I am not negative. This is me being positive. If you were successful, good for you. Proud of you. I am happy for you. I take delight in your joy. But if you're struggling and you live an existence like me, where you're a no-good bastard child of Fred Bear, eating dinner in the woodshed because you ain't good enough to come to the big house table, well, I'm here for you. That's the way that it is. I take pride in my viewership because I'm one of you and you're just like me. And I would rather die than quit. I would rather freeze my ball sack to that tree stand if I've got daylight to go out, if I can get out. Hell, I put my Jeep in the ditch the other day just to get out to the deer stand with a full understanding that odds are I'm not going to see a damn thing. But you've got to be mentally strong enough to be able to say, I'm going to go out. I know I'm not going to see anything. The exception to the rule is that I'm going to see something. That takes a lot more mental fortitude than it does to say, well, I'm not going to go out because I might not see something, because you're used to being successful. Oh boy. We'll see if I get out tonight. Seeing as I'm breaking the fourth wall today and kind of dropping a CM Punk pipe bomb, we tape in advance. So we held archery season until the first week in November. That way you guys have got stuff to watch in February. That way I can hunt all season long and not be scrambling to get footage edited, and my producer that I send it to that puts in all the fancy graphics and kind of cleans it up in the audio and such. We don't have to be scrambling on a Friday night trying to get out a half-assed episode. And you get to watch content later into the winter after the hunting seasons are done with, because we held it until November. So I'm sure at this point I've got at least a dozen comments telling me all the stuff that I'm doing wrong. Well, you move too much. You need to sit still. Oh, they smell you. Blah, blah, blah. There is a million reasons that you can come up with for you not seeing deer, other than the most likely reason that Occam's razor would suggest, that is, deer are going to do what deer are going to do. And if deer aren't moving through a property that you have access to, then they're just plain not there. If you get busted by a deer, you know that there was a deer there because it snorted and wheezed and busted you. But if deer aren't moving around, they're just not moving around. For instance, a lot of the crops are still in. It's been pretty wet. So if there are puddles in a cornfield, a deer has bedding cover, it has concealment, and it has food. So a deer can live a week in a wet fall in standing corn without even going more than 50 yards. Now, if you happen to have primo property and you got deer moving through all the time, good for you. I'm very happy for you. But if you don't, then you can come up with a million reasons to explain why somebody ain't seeing deer, when the most logical is deer are going to do what deer are going to do. Oh, we're not going hunting tonight. Well, this is the last load of this harvest for this side of my family. So that's good news. The bad news is that we're basically in the midst of a family tragedy because my grandma Grebner is going on hospice.
I know this probably isn't the most entertaining episode of Tex Grebner Outdoors that you've ever watched, but then again, I bring you reality. And as a traditional bow hunter, you need to have a persistent commitment to the acceptance of failure. That's just the way that it is. Life ain't like the pornos, hunting ain't like the TV shows, and Wile E. Coyote's still my spirit animal. But you're going to want to tune in next week to see if I actually kill with sticks. As always, God bless all my sportsmen of America. Join the NRA to protect our rights. Please check out my friends over at threeriversarchery.com. Thank you very much to those who are involved in law enforcement and those who serve in the military. Thanks for watching Tex Grebner Outdoors.